Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are now about to finish our second source for our Freedom Unit. And of course, this source is the inaugural address by John F. Kennedy, which he gave when he was inaugurated and when he became president in 1961. Again, the reason why we're reading this source is because we're going to look for more quotes to help us to answer the essay question that we're going to answer at the end of this unit. And again, there are two different essay questions. You get to choose one of them. The first one would be, what does it mean to be free? And the second one was, how can one person defend the rights of all other people or of other people? Now, in the first portion of this reading, we learned that John F. Kennedy was a big proponent of freedom. He did not like the fact, this was all about the Cold War, remember, and the fact that Russia and America were building up their arms, their nuclear weapons so badly. And he was afraid that because of that, it was, taking away the freedom of other countries because Russia was getting so strong that they could use this strength against weaker nations and take their freedoms away from them. And just like JFK, we learned that he believed that, and this is what we did in our first reading, that JFK believed that in order for Americans to truly be free, we had to help all other countries around the world be free. And that freedom was being taken away around the world, but that he believed that freedom was something given to every person in the world, not by the government, but by God himself. But that good countries needed to step up, band together in order to keep people free. Right. That and a lot like FDR in that regard, that you can't let weaker countries be taken over by stronger countries, that we all need to stick together and help other people. Another thing that he said was you can't trust dictators. It was just like FDR said. He said, and this is a great quote, he said that, and to remember that in the past, this is paragraph 8, those who foolishly sought power by riding the back of a tiger ended up inside. And what he means is the tiger are the bad countries, and some countries decide to try to ride the bad country. Maybe I can jump on board and they'll take me with them and they won't hurt me because I'm with them. I've got your back. But what happens is, and he said this, those dictators, after they're done, the bad countries are taking over the freedoms of the countries they're trying to take over. They will turn around and then take over your freedoms. The countries who are worked with him, helped you, and they will take your freedoms away and they'll kill you all. So he says you can't trust dictators. Another thing he says that in order to be free, you have to help all poor people as well. And he said that in order to be truly free, people need and have to have the ability to make a good and decent living. Because if you don't have the ability to make a good and decent living, then you're truly not free at all, right? Because you have no future and no dreams. He also said that nobody in the world should tell America what to do or any other countries what to do, that if you are your own country, you get to decide the direction you take, and that no other country should boss you around. And then the last thing we read, paragraph number 12, was JFK saying that he needs, and he believes that in order to be really free, you have to talk to your enemy countries. You have to open up a dialogue to stop the wars from happening. So rather than blow each other up, let's have a conversation and try to work together. Tonight's homework, you are going to do 3 to 5 annotations. Well, actually only 3 annotations, but it's not just the annotations. You've seen this assignment before. You did it for the Pit and the Pendulum. You did it for House Taken Over. And now, of course, you did it for Franklin Delano Roosevelt's For Freedom speech just last week. So you are going to do again for me today a first read guide for the inaugural address. So let's take a look at this very quickly. The first read guide, the top left box is very simple. I need 2 sentences each. You're going to tell me, what is this speech about? This speech is about John F. Kennedy talking to the world and telling everybody that we need to band together and be stronger and fight against Russia. The fact that he believes all poor people need to be defended, anything like that. Give me 2 sentences about what it's about and then who is involved. Specifically, John F. Kennedy is involved, but you can also say the entire world is involved because he's talking to everybody. He's not just talking to Americans, but he's talking to the entire world. All right, Russia is involved, right? And America, you can talk about that. Now, the top right, we're going to do 3 quotes and 3 annotations. You know how to do that. In fact, I will type in the first quote and annotation. So you have a perfect example up top of how it should be cited and how it should be annotated. And then, of course, you're going to do you're going to do the second and third quote by yourselves, but I will show you which quotes I think are perfect for it. I will tell you what what paragraph they're in. So what you would do at that point is pause me reading this, or jot down whatever paragraph I say it's in, then come back in later and cut and paste those quotes in and annotate them, explain why those quotes are important. This quote clearly shows. On the bottom left, you're going to connect this to anything you have already read or seen before. My suggestion and the easy connection here would be, of course, to connect this to FDR's speech. Why not? He gave a speech about freedom, and there's a lot of connections about this. They both believe that you had to step up against dictators and whatnot. Now, one more thing I want to show you on the bottom right, you are going to answer the comprehension check questions for the inaugural address. And I'm going to change this page right here because they're not on page 277. That was FDR's. This is on page 287. So please answer and how many questions are there? There are only 4. So let me erase this 5th one here. So you're going to answer the 4 questions that you find on page 287 and give me a sentence each. And also underneath it, you're going to give me a 1-paragraph summary of this speech. So, just tell me what he said, a couple of things, and you should be good to go. So again, the 4 things you need to do for me for the first read guide. Top left, 2 sentences, what is this speech about? 2 sentences, who is involved? Top right, give me 3 properly cited quotes and annotate them. Bottom left, connect this speech to anything that you've ever seen or done. Have you ever seen an inaugural address? Maybe you saw Barack Obama's inaugural address. Maybe you saw President Trump's inaugural address. You can connect it to that. Or, of course, and this is probably the better one, I would connect it to FDR's speech because they're very similar. And you can say this speech reminds me a lot of FDR's For Freedom speech because in both of these speeches, they're talking about what it means to be free. They both mention that you've got to step up to dictators. They both mention that you've got to work together with other countries and not let them be taken over. So you can get that done. And of course, you can write a quick summary of this after you do your questions on page 287, and you should be good to go. So with all that being said, allow me to stop presenting to you so that I can read the rest of this inaugural address. So I'm going to start today on paragraph number 13, where we left off yesterday. And I will tell you that I have paragraph 13 already underlined, and that's going to be the quote that I'm going to put in as the first quote. You don't have to put it in as your first quote in your top right box of your first read guide, but you can if you'd like. So let me hear it. We dare not tempt them with weakness, for only when our arms are sufficient beyond doubt can we be certain beyond doubt that they will never be employed. I love that quote. What he says is, if we're weak, if we don't build up our weapons the way they're building up their weapons, then they're going to get so strong they're going to attack us. But if we make ourselves super strong, they're not going to attack us because they're not going to want to die too. So let's go and present this. Let's go over to my first read guide. Hold on one second, please. First read guide, there it is. And I'm going to type in this first quote that I just got. So consider the following quote. I'm going to put quotation marks, and it is all of paragraph 13. We dare not tempt them with weakness. We dare not, I love this quote, tempt them with weakness. This is actually a couple of sentences put together, with weakness, period. And then it continues, and he says, for only when our arms are sufficient, for only when our arms are sufficient, only when our arms are sufficient, pardon me, let me get this in correctly, beyond doubt can we be certain, beyond doubt can we be certain, all right, and this is going to be the only one I type in today. You're going to have to type in all the rest yourselves. Can we be certain beyond doubt that they, be certain beyond doubt that they, sorry, let's spell that right, that they will never be employed, that they will never be employed. All right, now how do I cite this again? First, I put my quotation mark, not the period. Then I put my parentheses. I put the page number in those parentheses, 285. Then I close my parentheses. Then I put my period. And now let's annotate. What does this quote clearly show? This quote clearly shows that being strong, that JFK believed, FK believed that the only way to stop bad countries or dictators from attacking you and taking your freedoms is by being as strong as you can in a military sense. In other words, you must have the best and strongest military and weapons, period. And that's what he believed. So he said, if we don't build up our weapons the way they're, because they keep building up their weapons, so we've got to stick with them. We cannot get any weaker than them, because then they might try to push us around. So let's continue. I'm going to go back to me reading. Let's see. And we're going to go from there. Now, again, that was paragraph 13 that I just highlighted and quoted and noted and showed you. Let's continue. But neither can two great and powerful groups of nations take comfort from our present course. Both sides overburdened by the cost of modern weapons, both rightly alarmed by the steady spread of the deadly atom, yet both racing to alter that uncertain balance of terror that stays the hands of mankind's final war. So let us begin anew, remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness and sincerity is always subject to proof. I have this underlined, the last sentence of paragraph 15. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. So what he's saying there again is we should not talk to, we need to always talk to our enemies, right? He says, let us never negotiate out of fear. In other words, stay strong. And when you are strong, talk to your enemies. Don't just drop bombs on them. Give them a call and say, dude, don't send a bomb on me, because then I'm going to send a bomb on you. And let's not kill each other. So you got to be strong. Show that strength. Listen, let both sides explore what problems unite us instead of belaboring those problems which divide us. That's another interesting quote that you can put in. That's paragraph 16. He says, when we talk, let's talk about what unites us rather than what divides us. And that'll help us to not go to war, and that'll help us to be free. Listen. Let both sides for the first time formulate serious and precise proposals for the inspection and control of arms, and bring the absolute power to destroy other nations under the absolute control of all nations. Let both sides seek to invoke the wonders in science instead of its terrors. I have this next sentence underlined in paragraph 18. Together, let us explore the stars, conquer the deserts, eradicate disease, tap the ocean depths, and encourage the arts and commerce. So he's another way of him saying, let's work together. Let's not kill each other. Let both sides unite to heed in all corners of the earth the command of Isaiah, to undo the heavy burdens and let the oppressed go free. Just another example of him saying we should work together and we should make sure that all people are free. We should defend weaker nations. Let's continue. And if a beachhead of cooperation may push back the jungle of suspicion, and I now have this underlined, paragraph 20, let both sides join in creating a new endeavor, not a new balance of power, but a new world of law, where the strong are just and the weak secure and the peace preserved. That is a powerful quote, and I agree with him. Listen, let both sides join in creating a new endeavor and a new balance of power, but a new world of law. So and let me finish this, where the strong are just and the weak secure and the peace preserved. What he's saying is that in order to be free, there has to be laws. Think about it. If there was no laws in our country, how free would you really be? Could you be free? Could you walk to the store, pull out your money and buy something if there was no laws? No, someone is going to jump. They're going to take you. They're going to attack you. They're going to kill you and take your money if there's no laws. So he's saying laws are what keep people free, and we need good laws, and we need to stick to them. We need to make sure they are upheld. Listen, there's more. All this will not be finished in the first 100 days, nor will it be finished in the first 1,000 days, nor in the life of this administration, nor even perhaps in our lifetime on this planet. But let us begin. So he's saying, I understand this is going to take a long time to do it, but we need to start now. Listen, let's finish this up. In your hands, my fellow citizens, more than mine, will rest the final success or failure of our course. Since this country was founded, each generation of Americans has been summoned to give testimony to its national loyalty. The graves of young Americans who answered the call to service surrounded the globe. Now the trumpet summons us again, not to a call to bear arms, though arms we need, not a call to battle, though in battles we are, but a call to bear the burden of a long twilight struggle, year in and year out, rejoicing in a hope, patient in tribulation. I have this underlined now down, the last sentence of 23. A struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself. Guys, that's a great quote. The last sentence of paragraph 23, he says, a struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself. So, consider the following quote. JFK said, a struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself. This quote clearly shows that he believes that in order to be free, we must work to end those four things. There can be no tyranny. In other words, no dictators. There can be no poverty. We've got to keep everybody, you can't keep people poor. How free are they if they're poor and they've got no chance to succeed? You got to fix all diseases. How free are you if you're going to walk out the street, catch a disease, and die? And lastly, there can be no more wars, because truly, how free can a person be if there's a war going on around them as well? Listen, there's more. Can we forge against these enemies a grand and global alliance, north and south, east and west, that can assure a more fruitful life for all mankind? Will you join in that historic effort? In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I love that. He says, some people run from helping other people be free. I'm going to step up and help everybody, is what he said. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring in this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. It's a really famous quote. You probably heard it before. I'm going to underline it. So, my fellow Americans, this is paragraph number 26. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. So JFK believed that in order to be free, everybody needs to step up and help everybody else. Listen, my fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man. Look at that. That's paragraph number 27. That's pretty good too. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for freedom of man. Another way of him saying we must work together to keep people free. So JFK believed that in order to be free, everybody has to work together to maintain that freedom. It's a great quote, guys. That could be the whole purpose of your essay. That people need to work together to be free. Freedom means working together to keep that freedom. And you can give quotes from JFK to support it, that one right there. You can give a quote from FDR because he believed the same thing. We needed to stick together to stay free. We needed to keep poor countries free. We needed to keep weak countries free. Listen, finally, this is the last paragraph. Whether you are citizens of America or citizens of the world. And I like this. He's talking to everybody. Remember, I think that's part of the first read guide. Who is he talking to? He's talking to he's talking to Americans, and he's talking to the world itself. Listen. Finally, whether you're citizens of America or citizens of the world, ask of us here the same high standards of strength and sacrifice which we ask of you. With a good conscience, our only sure reward, with history the final judge of our deeds, let us go forth to lead the land we love, asking his blessing and his help, but knowing that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own. Another way of saying, yes, we're going to ask God for help, but at the end of the day, that's not enough. We've got to step up and do God's work on earth. And that means protecting weak people, not letting them be so poor that they have no freedoms, not letting people take over other countries or bully them with their weapons. What he did say was, I don't want to use these weapons. He did say that, but he did say, I am going to build up our weapons so that nobody bullies us around. So don't get JFK wrong. He does not want to go to war. He wants the war to be stopped. Remember, FDR and the other one was calling for war. He was saying, we've got to build up our military and we've got to go kick these guys' butts. JFK says, no. We've got to build up our military and not fight these guys. Now, if they come and fight us, clearly he would have fought against them. But what he was saying was, we've got to stop the wars. And how do we stop wars? By being the strongest military we can possibly be. Some people might think that's an act like that. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you build up your military if you don't ever want to use it? Well, why do I put, it's a hard analogy. I don't want to say it that way. Let's just say this. JFK's mind. I don't want war, but in order to get that freedom of no war, then we've got to be the strongest we can be so that the other countries will not mess with us or try to take us over. He also believed that you should, once you have that strength, the same strength that they do, that's when you can talk to them and say, hey, dudes, buds, let's not fight, because then we're just going to kill each other and then nobody's going to be free. Okay, so again, your homework for tonight, I'm going to show it one last time. You are going to open up the first read guide and you are going to answer this. What is the speech about? You know who is involved, the entire world and all of America. I have given you one quote up top. I have shown you at least another 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 or probably I'd say about 6 or 8 quotes, maybe 10 quotes that you can use for quotes 2 and 3. Connect this. I would connect this to FDR's speech. And then, of course, for the bottom right, you are doing 2 things. You are answering those 4 questions on page 287. Then you're giving a 1-paragraph summary of this speech. Really fantastic job, everybody. Have a great day.